Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to cut through the noise, get straight to the core insights on really crucial industries. Today, we're plunging into a market you might not have heard of, but it's absolutely vital, the global tebuconazole market. So what exactly is tebuconazole? Let's break it down. Simply put, it's a key fungicide used worldwide in agriculture. Think of it like a quiet guardian, protecting essential crops, wheat, rice, grapes, things we rely on, protecting them from fungal diseases that could really hammer yields and impact our food supplies.
Exactly. And you might be sitting there thinking, okay, a fungicide, why should I care? Okay. Well, this market, it's deeply connected to global food production, to how we protect crops, and even to the broader economic currents shaping things.
Hmm.
Understanding this tuberconazole journey, it actually gives you a surprising window into how food gets to your plate.
It really does. So our mission today on this deep dive, unpack the market's growth. We're looking at projections from 2021 right through to 2033. We want to get beyond just the raw numbers, uncover the real trends, the forces driving it, and maybe some surprising shifts in revenue growth rates across continents, right down to specific countries.
Right. And to set that global stage first, the tebuconazole market back in 2021 was valued at just over $1.9 billion. That's USD, of course. Projections see it climbing to roughly $2.3 billion by 2025, and then continuing that climb to an estimated $3.4 billion, give or take, by 2033. Now, that represents a pretty consistent compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of just under 5% globally, 4.945% to be precise. And this steady growth, well, it tells us tebuconazole remains a really critical tool for farmers around the world.
Okay, so almost 5% globally, that sets the scene. But as you often find, the real story gets interesting when you break it down regionally. Because, yeah, when we zoom in, the growth patterns, they're surprisingly different across continents. Let's start with North America. How's it looking there?
North America. Okay, here we're looking at what you'd call a mature market, but it's still consistently growing. The tebuconazole market there is projected to expand from about 484 million in 2021 to just over $809 million by 2033. So that's maintaining an average annual growth rate, a KGR, about 4.37%. Pretty solid.
Right. And within North America, I assume the U.S. is the big player.
Oh, definitely. The United States holds the lion's share, no surprise there. It's set for solid growth itself, projected to go from around 390 million in 2021 up to nearly 633 million by 2033. That's a CGR of about 4.1%.
Okay. So steady growth in the U.S.
But what's really interesting as you dig in is the contrast with its neighbors. You look at Canada. Canada is actually showing significantly faster growth. We're talking a 5.8% CER. Its market size is expected to nearly double by 2033, from about 77 million up to almost 153 million.
Wow, nearly 6%. So much faster than the U.S. Any thoughts on why?
It likely indicates, a robust expansion in Canadian agriculture, maybe new farming practices gaining traction, or perhaps increased demand for protection in specific crops they're focusing on.
Right.
Then you contrast that with Mexico.
Right.
Mexico's growth is much more subdued, projecting growth from about 16.5 million to just over 23 million. That's a CAGR of only 2.7%.
Less than 3%. That's quite a difference.
It really is. It suggests different regional factors are clearly at play, maybe varying adoption rates of the fungicide, different crop portfolios, regulatory environments. Lots of possibilities.
Okay, very interesting comparison there within North America. Let's shift across the Atlantic. How does Europe stack up? It's got diverse agriculture, different policies. What's the story there?
Europe's market overall is also set for healthy expansion. It was around $567 million back in 2021, and it's set to touch almost $960 million by 2033. So it's expanding at an annual rate of about 4.5%. Pretty close to the North American average, actually.
Okay, 4.5%. And who's leading the pack in Europe?
Germany. Germany leads the European market. It shows steady, strong growth. Revenues there are expected to increase by more than 60%, from about 113 million to 188 million. It's a 4.3% CAGR. Consistent demand, really highlighting Germany's ongoing commitment to agricultural productivity.
Right, and the UK.
The UK also shows solid expansion, growing from around 75 million to about 117 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of 3.7%. Steady, but a bit slower than Germany.
Okay, but I noticed France seems to have a quite strong momentum mentioned in the data. What's happening there?
France. Yes, that's a great observation. Their CAGR is higher at 4.666%. increasing from roughly 83 million to almost 144 million. That momentum likely stems from a mix of things, perhaps increased adoption of precision agriculture, or maybe specific high-value crops like vineyards, which are major tebuconazole users, are seeing expanded cultivation, or increased disease pressure needing treatment.
Makes sense, especially with the vineyards.
Definitely. And beyond those big three, Germany, France, UK, we see quite a few other European markets showing healthy growth, too. Italy's got a strong Cajor over 5%. Russia, interestingly, over 5.5%. Spain is showing really good momentum, too, over 5.3% annually, going from about 42 million to nearly 80 million.
So quite dynamic across the board.
Yes. And then you have others like Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, all showing decent growth around 4% or a bit higher. Even Luxembourg, though smaller, is growing. The rest of Europe category is a bit slower, under 3%, suggesting growth is concentrated in those key agricultural nations.
Okay, that paints a clear picture for Europe. Now, Asia Pacific. Because the notes here suggest the growth story isn't just significant, it's, well, quite remarkable.
Oh, absolutely. Asia Pacific is where we see the most dynamic growth overall. The market there surged from nearly $640 million in 2021 to an estimated $1.2 billion by 2033. That represents the strongest regional growth globally, a CAGR of over 5.5%.
Right.
Really notable.
Over 5.5%. Wow. And within that region, China, I assume, is massive.
China is the largest market, yes. Forecasted to grow from about $221 million to over $408 million. That's roughly an 85% increase over the period. And it maintains a very strong annual growth rate, over 5.2%. Given China's sheer agricultural scale, any growth there obviously has a huge global impact.
Huge impact, right. But you mentioned remarkable growth. If we're talking truly explosive growth, the data points to India, right, demonstrating the strongest rate globally.
That's the real standout. India's CAGR is projected at a remarkable 7.294%, nearly 7.3% annually. It's projected to more than double its market size by 2033. Going from around $100 million in 2021 to over $234 million.
Over double, 7.3% a year. That's incredible. What's fueling that kind of acceleration?
It's likely a combination of factors. You've got rapid agricultural modernization happening, an increasing focus on food security for its massive population, and potentially just a greater awareness and adoption of modern crop protection measures among farmers finally taking hold. It really signifies a major shift, a transformation in Indian agriculture.
Fascinating. Okay, so beyond the giants of China and India, who else is important in APAC?
Well, Japan shows very steady growth, almost 4.8% CGR, increasing from 112 million to about 197 million. Consistent. South Korea is also progressing strongly, growing from about 60 million to 108 million. That's just over 5% CEGR. And Australia's market is growing briskly too, nearly 6% annually, 5.978%, set to reach about 96 million.
And I see notes here for Singapore and Southeast Asia generally.
Yes, don't overlook those. Singapore shows a fantastic KGR of over 6.1%, and Southeast Asia as a whole, grouping several countries, is growing at a solid 5%. Taiwan also maintains a good pace. It really underscores the dynamism across so much of the region.
It really does. It's interesting, though, that the rest of APAC's category, sort of the miscellaneous smaller market, shows almost no growth, a tiny 0.4% AZGR.
Exactly. It suggests the expansion is very concentrated in these key agricultural economies and rapidly developing nations within the region.
Right. Okay, let's move on. South America, what's the picture there?
South America's market is also showing strong growth. It's expected to almost double in size overall, growing from nearly $130 million in 2021 to over $240 million by 2033. That's recording a healthy annual growth rate of just under 5.4%.
Okay, nearly 5.4%. And Brazil, I imagine, leads the charge there, given its agricultural scale.
Absolutely. Brazil is the market leader. Its market is set to grow from about $55 million to over $100 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of nearly 5.3%. Given Brazil's massive output, especially, soybeans, corn, tebuconazole clearly plays a critical role there.
Makes sense. Any other standouts in South America?
Yes, definitely look at Argentina and Colombia. They both display really significant growth. Both are expected to see their markets expand considerably, with annual growth rates near 6%. Argentina reaching almost 51 million, Colombia nearly 36 million by 2033. It really highlights the increasing intensity of agriculture across the continent. Peru and Chile are also showing strong performance, both with growth around 5% annually.
Okay, good overview for South America. Now let's turn our attention to the Middle East, a region maybe not first associated with agriculture, but definitely developing.
Right, and that development shows in the numbers. The tebuconazole market here is climbing from around $50 million in 2021
Yep.
to nearly $100 million by 2033. So almost doubling, and posting a very healthy annual growth rate of almost 6%. 5.9% to be precise.
Nearly 6%. Where's the demand strongest?
We're seeing strong demand across Saudi Arabia,
Sure.
Turkey, but especially the UAE. The United Arab Emirates boasts the highest EGR in the region, a remarkable 6.88%, nearly 6.9%. It's rising from about $9 million to almost $20 million.
Wow, almost 7% in the UAE. What's driving that specifically, do you think?
It likely reflects their strong focus on local food production, food security initiatives,
Huh.
investing heavily in advanced farming techniques, trying to grow more locally, even in an arid climate.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. And elsewhere in the Middle East?
Egypt is also showing strong growth, just over 6% CAGR. And Qatar is maintaining healthy momentum too, over 5.4% annually. It further emphasizes that increasing investment in agriculture across the Middle East region.
Good insight. Okay, finally, let's wrap up the regional tour with Africa. How's the Tebuconazole market developing there?
Africa's market, while smaller in absolute dollar terms compared to other regions, is still showing really promising growth. Don't discount it. It's set to almost double over the next decade as well. From around $54 million in 2021 to over $100 million, about $103 million by 2033. That holds a healthy annual growth rate of just over 5.3%.
Right, over 5.3%. And within Africa, Nigeria stands out as the largest market.
Yes, Nigeria is the largest single market for tebuconazole there, and it's projected to grow substantially, from about $24.5 million to over $45 million by 2033. That reflects significant agricultural development efforts happening in Nigeria, with a CTJR around 5%.
Okay, and South Africa.
South Africa also shows strong performance. Its market is expected to more than double by 2033 as well. It's growing from about 21 million up to nearly $42 million. That's an impressive 5.8% CAGR.
Nearly 6% there, too.
Exactly. The growth in these key African nations, Nigeria and South Africa, really underscores the continent's potential for agricultural expansion and the increasing need for effective crop protection as farming practices evolve and intensify there.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of numbers across the globe. So, after wading through all that data, what's the real story here? What does it all mean? It seems like it's not just about that steady global growth of, just under 5%. The real narrative seems to be in these sharper uptrends, these surges we saw in specific countries, India, UAE, Singapore, parts of South America and Africa.
Yeah.
These aren't just abstract percentages. They feel like signals, right? Like India's explosive growth may be pointing to a massive agricultural transformation underway, driven by that push for self-sufficiency, modern farming. Whereas the more modest growth in some established markets, like maybe parts of Europe or North America, perhaps suggests saturation, or maybe a shift towards alternative crop protection methods. Understanding these nuances feels key.
You've hit it exactly. That's the core takeaway. Connecting it to the bigger picture, it paints an optimistic market outlook overall, but especially in Asia-Pacific and these other emerging regions, it's clearly driven by evolving agricultural practices, yes, but also just persistent fundamental fungicide demand worldwide. What's fascinating here, as you said, is how these specific high-growth regional stories contribute to the larger global narrative. The narrative around ensuring food security, around agricultural resilience in a rapidly changing world. It shows how targeted solutions, even a specific chemical like tebuconazole, play a small but absolutely crucial role in this vast global ecosystem of food production, influencing supply chains, influencing availability, and ultimately the cost of the food that you rely on every day.
What an incredible deep dive into a market that, most people probably haven't thought much about, but is so fundamental. Thank you for joining us on this journey, really uncovering such detailed insights into the Tebuconazole market today. It's truly fascinating to see those connections to our daily lives.
Absolutely. And maybe this leaves you, the listener, with an important question to ponder. As global populations continue to grow and agricultural demands intensify, especially with climate change adding pressure, how do you think our approach to crop protection might need to evolve? Will we see more reliance on established tools like tebuconazole, or will innovation shift us towards entirely new solutions to feed the world? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Keep digging for knowledge, everyone, and we'll see you on the next deep dive. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we dig into the sources, the data, everything really, to give you the key insights you need. Today, we are jumping into tebuconazole. Now, I know it sounds a bit technical, maybe.
A little bit, yeah.
But trust me, it's basically a silent hero in modern farming. It plays this absolutely critical role, and it affects, the food you eat every day. So our mission here is to unpack its market, what's pushing its growth, What are the hurdles and what's coming next? Think of it as your fast track to understanding a really important but maybe unsung piece of global food production. Okay, so let's dive in. What is really driving the demand for tebuconazole? Where should we start with its expansion?
Well, the biggest thing is pretty straightforward, really.
Mm-hmm.
We've got more people on the planet every year, right?
Right.
And we don't really have much more farmable land.
Mm,
So that puts this huge pressure on farmers. They have to get more yield, more crop from the same space.
makes sense.
And tebuconazole, its strength is its broad applicability. It's incredibly versatile. It works on a whole range of crops. We're talking cereals like wheat and corn, which are staples, but also fruits, vegetables,
So pretty much everything.
a lot of things, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it a go-to choice, especially where farming is really intensive and they need reliable protection.
That versatility sounds, well, incredibly useful for big farms. But I also saw things about regulations playing a role. How much does government approval really matter here?
Oh, it's huge. A really big factor. You see, governments in quite a few key countries have approved various tebuconazole products.
Okay.
And that's not random. It's usually based on, proven effectiveness,
Yeah.
but also because it tends to break down in the environment a bit faster than some of the, let's say, older fungicides.
Ah, okay. So it's seen as maybe a slight improvement there.
In some respects, yes.
Hmm.
And when you have rules that actually encourage new agrochemicals, and especially when they support fitting them into IPM programs,
IPM, right? Integrated pest management.
exactly, those holistic strategies, using different methods together, when tebuconazole fits into that, it really boosts its adoption. You see that a lot in, like, Europe or North America, and also in faster-growing agricultural economies.
Right, that gives it a solid footing. So it's protecting these massive fields, but is it moving beyond just traditional farming? Any other areas?
Oh, absolutely. That's another interesting growth area. It's gaining quite a bit of traction in non-crop uses.
Like what?
Think about turf management, golf courses, sports fields, big lawns on commercial properties, or ornamental horticulture, flowers, shrubs in nurseries, or landscaping.
Ah, okay.
Concaball is really good against common fungal diseases there, things like rusts, powdery mildew, the stuff that can really ruin the look of turf or valuable plants.
So it's moving to cities and managed landscapes too.
Precisely. It opens up a whole different market beyond just food production.
That's fascinating. Okay, so it definitely has a lot going for it. But, I mean, nothing's perfect, right? There must be some challenges, some headwinds it's facing.
You're absolutely right. No silver bullets here. Probably the biggest hurdle involves environmental and health regulations. They're
Yeah.
getting stricter.
How so?
Well, there are ongoing concerns, and growing ones, about things like pesticide residues potentially ending up in food, or the possibility of it getting into groundwater. And there's also discussion around potential endocrine disrupting effects.
Okay, that sounds serious.
It is. And these concerns trigger regulatory reviews that can lead to tighter limits on how much you can use or where, and sometimes you even hear talk of phasing it out in certain regions. It just creates this unpredictability for its future, like trying to plan long-term on shaky ground.
That regulatory uncertainty is a big one. And thinking biologically, you mentioned its effectiveness, but isn't there always a risk of, well, resistance? Do the fungi fight back?
That's a constant battle, yes. It's a major technical challenge. Fungal species are, unfortunately, very adaptable. They evolve.
Right?
So if tebuconazole is used too much, especially if farmers don't rotate it with different types of fungicides, the target fungi can develop resistance.
And then it just stops working as well.
Exactly, its effectiveness drops off. And that's a serious problem for the farmer. It forces them to look for other solutions, maybe combination treatments, maybe entirely different chemicals, which often means higher costs and potentially lower yields if the disease gets ahead.
So it's biology, it's regulation. What about just plain economics? Does the global supply chain cause headaches?
Definitely. The market is very sensitive to price swings and where the basic ingredients come from. The whole manufacturing supply chain for these chemicals is, well, it can be quite fragile.
Like a house of cards.
A bit like that, yeah. Think about it. A trade dispute over here, some geopolitical tension over there, even just fluctuations in the cost of basic chemicals.
It all ripples through.
It does, can suddenly drive up the cost of the raw materials needed to make tebuconazole, or even disrupt production altogether. This puts pressure on pricing and availability, especially for countries that rely heavily on importing these chemical precursors.
Okay, so there are definitely significant challenges. But the market is still growing. How is it adapting? What are the sort of evolving trends we're seeing?
Yeah, despite those hurdles, there's innovation happening. A really key trend is the move towards combination products.
Mixing it with other things.
Exactly. Manufacturers are blending tebuconazole with other fungicides, ones that work in a slightly different way. Things like trifloxystrobin or azoxystrobin.
Why do that?
Two main reasons. One, you often get better overall disease control, a broader spectrum, or more power. And two, crucially, it helps manage that resistance problem we talked about. Hitting the fungus with multiple modes of action makes it much harder for resistance to develop quickly.
Ah, smart. A multi-pronged attack.
Pretty much. And these Congo products are becoming really popular, especially where disease pressure is high.
Now, you mentioned earlier it's a synthetic chemical, but I think I saw something about it being used in, sustainable farming. That sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It does a little, but it's about nuance. So tebuconazole is synthetic. It's not organic. But compared to some alternatives, its toxicological profile is relatively more favorable in certain aspects.
Okay.
So it can be used strategically within programs that are trying to minimize overall chemical input. It's not the first choice, maybe, but it's a tool that can be used carefully.
How does that work in practice?
Well, think about combining it with precision agriculture. GPS-guided sprayers, for instance, that only apply the fungicide exactly where it's needed in a field, not just blanket spray.
Right, targeted application.
Yes, that drastically cuts down the total amount used, reduces potential residues, and it aligns better with those broader goals of sustainable farming, even if you are using a synthetic product in a limited way.
That makes sense. Using it smarter, not just more. What about geographically? Is it expanding into new regions?
Oh, absolutely. We're seeing really rapid expansion in what you call emerging markets
Where specific?
across Asia-Pacific, Latin America, parts of Africa, too. There's a major uptick in demand for crop protection products in these regions.
Why there?
It's driven by, well, fundamental things. Population growth, obviously, growing concerns about food security, making sure there's enough food, and just the general modernization of farming practices as economies develop.
And tebuconazole fits the bill.
It does. Its adaptability, the fact that it works on many crops, its proven track record, and often its cost effectiveness compared to maybe newer, more expensive options. It makes it a really solid choice for farmers in these high-growth areas where maximizing food production is just paramount.
Wow, okay. We've certainly covered a lot of ground today. It's really quite a journey for this one chemical, isn't it? From its absolutely vital role in, protecting the crops that feed us and even keeping our parks green, then navigating all these complex regulations and then the biological challenge of resistance, and then seeing the innovation in formulations and its spread across the globe. It's clear that tebuconazole, even if most people haven't heard of it, is pretty fundamental to global agriculture.
It really is. And this whole deep dive into Tebuconazole's story, from being essential for food production to facing these modern challenges and seeing how industry and farmers are responding with new solutions, it really makes you think, doesn't it? It kind of forces us to consider a bigger question. What does this picture tell us about how we strike that balance, that really delicate balance between needing to produce enough food for everyone and needing to be responsible stewards of our environment for the long haul?